Hey guys, it's Mark again from The Abstract. Congratulations on making it through the last chapter. In this tutorial, we're going to expand on voice leading a little bit further than we did in the previous chapter. We discussed last chapter that voice leading had to do with smoothness between our chords, achieving a certain sense of smoothness as opposed to having the chords jump around in root position. Now we're going to apply that concept to actual songs. I've chosen the Daft Punk song Get Lucky, and we're going to build that progression together and use voice leading techniques to make it as smooth as we possibly can. So let's get started. I've loaded up a piano track with an empty region. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I've already determined what the chords are for this song. It's B minor 7 to D major to F sharp minor 7 to E major. So before I do anything else, I'm going to put the bass notes in. Bass is usually between the C0 and C2 range. I'm going to create a note by right-clicking right here, right there instead. That's a B. And then I'm going to move the next note up to D, and then F sharp, and then E. So forgot to drag it correctly. So without even playing the chords, hopefully you get an idea of the framework of the chords just by hearing the bass line. Dun, 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 dun. So we're going to try to achieve those chords. Sorry for my terrible singing there, but hopefully you have an idea of what the song sounds like. So I told you that the chords are B minor 7 followed by D major to F sharp minor 7 to E. So we've gotten all the bass notes. So if you can imagine yourself as a keyboard player, usually keyboard players play the bass note or the root of the chord in the left hand, followed by a certain voicing in the right hand. So just because we're being adventurous, I'm not going to build my first chord in root position. I'm going to build it on something a little bit different. I'm going to start it in second position, meaning that the fifth of the chord is going to be on the bottom. Now, if we can ignore these bass notes, obviously they're on the bottom. I'm talking more specifically about the bottom note in the stack of harmonies. So if we were to build a B minor 7 in root position, we would have B up a minor third to D, up another third to F sharp, and then A would be the minor 7, which would give us a minor third, perfect fifth, minor 7. So if we just play that chord by itself, it sounds good, but it could sound better, it could sound fuller. And the way to achieve more of a full sound is to revoice it, spread it out a little bit. And what I'm going to do first is try just raising some notes up the octave. So if I put this here, we all of a sudden have a more open sounding chord. And that's by simply taking the third and moving it up an octave. So now this is in second position because the fifth of the chord is on the bottom. Now, we could have taken the time to actually insert the root in the harmony in the right hand, but because the bass is playing it, rule of thumb is you don't necessarily have to duplicate it in the right hand if you don't want to. That's a little more challenging for a piano player because they have to use an extra finger. So because the root is already identified in the bass, let's just leave it out. And this is what the chord sounds like. So now we want to get a D major chord from there. The way we do that is to simply first build it in root positions. So a D major chord would have a major third, F sharp, A, which is the perfect fifth, and then another D again. Now, you didn't have to include the D because it's also the root, but I chose to in this particular case for voice leading reasons. This looks pretty smooth to me, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to mute these. Just hear how this sounds. It sounds smooth. And the reason it sounds smooth is because we didn't move at all, really, other than the bass note from chord to chord. These notes stayed right where they are. And that's the smoothest type of voice leading there is. No movement at all. So if we can, whenever possible, let's try to move as little as possible. Okay, cool. So we have the first two chords sounding like this. Okay, great. Now, if you notice, I put the next two bass notes right here. I'm already rethinking that decision because if we were to build our chord off of the bass note is already in the harmony range. So we're going to have to move everything up. So because I've ran into that little dilemma, I'm going to move both of these notes down the octave. Unmute them. And remember, to move stuff down an octave, that key command is hold Shift, Option, and then press the down key, or the down arrow. So now we have something that sounds more bassy with the last two chords. Do, do. And that's a good start. So now we have more room to build our chord up here. So we need an F sharp minor 7 chord. Let's build it in root position. So we need a minor third, which is 3 steps. Oops, undo that, Command Z, Option, and then a perfect fifth, and then a minor 7. So you can already just visually tell that that's a huge jump right there. So first thing we want to do is look for the common tones between the previous chord and this chord and just move them to their rightful position. What are some common tones? Well, both of the chords share an F sharp and both of the chords share an A. Let's try moving this A up. Okay, cool. We have synonymous relationship now between those two notes, so that's taken care of. So that C sharp could technically stay there because the D is moving very smoothly down to it by a single half step. But because this note is hanging up top, this D, I'm going to take that E, which is the minor 7, and I'm going to move that up an octave. And it's a pretty spread out chord, but technically it's an F sharp minor 7 in second position because the fifth is still on the bottom of this chord stack. Now let's hear the 3 chords in sequence. And if we wanted to, we could duplicate the root up an octave. So that's what I'm going to do. And look what we've achieved. This note has remained consistent in every chord so far. And that's what we want. Now let's hear these 3 chords in sequence. Yeah, a very thick, full F sharp minor 7 chord. Now it's still a second position chord because the fifth is on the bottom. It's just how we chose to play it with voice leading. So now we want to move to the final chord, which is just an E chord. So I'm going to unmute this, and I'm going to build an E chord in root position. Major third, perfect fifth, and then the root again. Now we can already tell that this is a huge jump. Let's just play these 2 chords, you'll hear what I mean. Now that's not very smooth. We want to smooth it out, and how we do that is by looking for common tones first and foremost. What are some of the common tones? Well, E is a common tone. Boom, leaves a lot of space here. So what if we decided to move that up an octave? Look what we've done. We have a smooth transition from either this note or this note down to here. We have a smooth transition from here to here and here to here. So let me take a moment to build all of these for you in root position so you can hear what it sounds like with just root position and very little smoothness. So it'll take 1 second here. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to play both of these examples. This example has every chord in root position. Now, it doesn't sound bad, but it could probably sound better. Because you hear how the chords are moving too much. You can hear how the chords are jumping around, and you don't want that sort of jaggedness in your progressions. You want the smoothness. So now, let's play this guy. So there you have it. Just a little bit more about voice leading. Don't be afraid to reorganize your chord structures and use different inversions to gain that smoothness. It's only going to make your song sound even better. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, but stay tuned for the next lesson.